I drove my car down into the basement of my husband's office building, and by chance I saw, right in front of me, my husband leaning against the hood, his hand on the cheek of a young blonde woman, their lips touching. Instead of screaming, I hit the gas. My car surged forward, making the woman scream, and my husband stepped back, his face drained of all color. I am Kimberly Evans, 36 years old, head of communications at Midwest Connect Media in Detroit. I used to think I was living the true definition of stability: a house in the Birmingham suburbs, a sweet daughter, and a successful husband who worked as the director of communications for Aurora Dynamics Incorporated, a NASDAQ-listed tech corporation headquartered in downtown Detroit. On the morning of our 10th wedding anniversary, Weston texted me, "Wear something navy tonight, it suits you." I laughed. I thought he was being thoughtful. I left work early, stopped by Somerset Mall, picked out a V-neck navy dress that felt both mature and feminine. I planned to swing by his office, Aurora Dynamics, to surprise him. In 10 years, I'd rarely done anything spontaneous, and today, I wanted to break the rule. Aurora's headquarters loomed in downtown Detroit, a sleek glass building reflecting the autumn sky. The parking lot was filled with Teslas, BMWs, and Lexuses. I spotted Weston's car in his usual spot, marked with a sign reserved for communications director. I was about to text him when I saw a familiar figure and froze. Between the rows of cars, Weston was leaning against the hood of a pink Porsche, his hand cupping the face of Tiffany Maxwell, the talented CFO 10 years his junior, whom I'd met a few times at company parties. Their kiss was slow, familiar, and utterly cruel. In that moment, time stopped. I didn't scream. I just felt something inside my chest break, quietly but definitively. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and recorded the scene. I didn't know why I did it, only that if one day he denied it, I would have the truth. When Weston turned around, his eyes met mine. I hit the gas. My car surged forward, screeching to a stop just in front of them. Tiffany screamed. Weston stepped back, his face drained of all color. I rolled down the window and said coldly, "Happy 10th anniversary. You really know how to surprise me." Then I drove off, leaving behind the burnt scent of rubber and a pride going up in smoke. On the way, I played Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever, driving down Woodward Avenue, the street we once watched fireworks on after our wedding. Everything familiar suddenly felt foreign. I didn't know if I was sad or angry, only that I was awake. When I got home, I poured a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon from the wine collection Weston treated like treasure, opened my laptop, and sent the video to David Cho, the lawyer who once helped me draft a life insurance policy. I typed a single line, "Keep this for me." I need evidence for this marriage. I wasn't thinking ahead. It was pure self-defense, to keep the video somewhere Weston couldn't erase it. I sat looking at the wedding photos on the table, suddenly wanting to erase it all. I opened the photos folder on his laptop. His Apple ID had always been synced with mine. I started deleting image after image, until I paused at an unfamiliar file. silver_horizon_report.pdf. Curious, I clicked it open. A screen appeared showing wire transfers with enormous figures. Beneath the title was the name Silver Horizon Holdings Limited, Panama City, and the line, "Beneficiary, Weston Evans." I blinked. My heart pounded. I scrolled down. Over $400,000 transferred overseas in 2 years. The same 2 years Weston got promoted and awarded stock bonuses. The wine turned bitter in my mouth. This wasn't just marital betrayal. This was a betrayal of the law. I saved the file and sent it to David with a message. "Can you check if this is an undeclared offshore account?" A minute later, he replied, "If this is legit, Kimberly, your husband is committing tax evasion. And Aurora could be under investigation." I went quiet, watching the light refract through my wine glass. "So I've just opened the door he tried hardest to keep shut." I set the glass down, picked up my work notebook, and wrote, "Transparency begins tonight. When the doorbell rang, I found Martha Klein, my 62-year-old neighbor, a retired lawyer, standing there with a freshly baked apple pie. She smiled gently. "Saw your lights were still on. Thought something might be wrong. A little sweetness might help you sleep." I took the pie and thanked her with a smile. No words needed to be said, but the look in her eyes grounded me. Perhaps those who've known loss can always recognize the face of someone who's just lost faith. When the door closed behind me, I looked at the pie, then back at the words in my notebook. Transparency begins tonight. I knew I had crossed the threshold between pain and truth. And from that moment on, I was no longer the betrayed wife. I was the witness of an unspoken justice. I didn't have to wait long to watch Weston begin to crumble. Around 8 o'clock, the hallway echoed with the sound of a turning key, and then he walked in, holding a bouquet of red roses and a small jewelry box wrapped in silver paper. The scent of Bleu de Chanel filled the room, a fragrance I once adored, now sickening. He gave a weak smile. "I know you're upset tonight, but we shouldn't let a misunderstanding ruin everything, right?" I leaned against the kitchen counter, eyes fixed on him. "A misunderstanding? Did you buy those flowers with Aurora Dynamics money or with your Panama funds?" Weston's face went pale, as if someone had just slapped him. He froze, eyes darting, scrambling to gauge how much I knew. What are you talking about? What Panama?" I opened the laptop and turned the screen toward him. The PDF file was already up, titled Silver Horizon Holdings Limited. Panama City. I spoke slowly, enunciating each word. "I didn't know you were bilingual, Weston." "In English and money," he stammered, voice dry. "It was just temporary transfers, an investment firm." Tiffany misunderstood. I raised an eyebrow, offered a faint smile, but it was colder than steel. "Then why did you sign 3 times? And why did it all coincide with your promotion?" He stepped forward, tried to reach for my hand, voice pleading. "Kimberly, you know me. I did this for our future. I needed a separate fund to protect our assets. In case the company had issues, I stepped back, pulling my hand away. No, Weston. You did this for greed. You weren't protecting anyone but yourself." Silence fell. The ticking of the wall clock echoed, and I could hear his shallow breath. Weston glanced around the kitchen like it had turned from a home into an interrogation room. He threw the flowers onto the counter. "You think you know everything? You don't understand the pressure I'm under. You're just the outsider, judging." I let out a quiet laugh. "Yes, I'm outside. Because you never let anyone in. And you chose betrayal over honesty." At the height of tension, the bedroom door creaked open. Meredith, our 7-year-old daughter in pink pajamas, clutching her teddy bear, stepped out, sleepy-eyed. "Did Daddy make Mommy cry?" I froze, suddenly aware of the tears running down my cheeks. My throat tightened. I knelt down, stroked her hair, and forced my voice calm. "It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy just forgot. That truth matters more than gifts." Weston lowered his head, avoiding her eyes. He stepped back toward the stairs, silent, then muttered, "I'll stay at a hotel tonight." I stood up, arms folded. "You should. And Weston, before you go, take your laptop. I don't need anything else here that smells like lies." He looked at me briefly, then grabbed his suitcase and walked out. The door shut gently, but its echo thundered through the hollow house. I turned back, picked up Meredith, and soothed her to sleep. As her eyelids closed, I sat beside the bed, watching her face in the warm glow of the nightlight. I told myself, for her, I will not fall. That night, I didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I made coffee, reopened David's emails, and reviewed every file I'd sent. The numbers from the Panama account danced before my eyes, mocking me. I knew, one wrong move, and Weston wouldn't just lose this marriage, he'd lose everything. But for me, this was no longer about revenge. It was about justice, about the transparency I once taught him to value. I opened my notebook and wrote another line beneath the first. If truth costs peace, I'll still pay in full. The next morning, as the autumn sunlight filtered through the curtains, I was still sitting there, my eyes burning from a sleepless night. The house was so quiet, I could hear the ticking of the clock, and in my head, one word echoed relentlessly: prove. Not to seek revenge, but to confirm that I wasn't crazy, that everything I felt was real. I didn't want to be dismissed as a bitter wife making things up. I wanted the truth to speak for itself. I called Tess Moreno, my close friend and also the accountant at Aurora Dynamics. She picked up, her voice noticeably hushed. "Kimberly, I heard about yesterday." The whole office is buzzing. Tiffany suddenly took leave, and Weston missed this morning's meeting. The CEO's been questioning everyone. I took a deep breath. "Tess, I need to see you." Now 30 minutes later, I was at her midtown Detroit apartment, a red brick building with a small balcony full of crimson maple trees where she lived with her aging cat, Whiskey. She opened the door, worry written all over her face. "Kimberly, this could get messy." "You shouldn't be involved." I stepped inside and set my coffee cup on the table. "I'm not here on emotion. I need information. Something's wrong inside Aurora, and I believe Weston's involved." Tess sat across from me, fingers interlaced, her voice trembling. "Last week, while I was auditing the communication department's expense logs from 2 years ago, I found 3 advertising contracts totaling $1.2 million. But something was off. They were signed with companies that don't actually exist. No tax ID, no office address. Even their websites had been taken down. What's stranger is that the person who handled those accounts, Allison Grant, a senior accountant at the time, was suddenly let go. No reason, no warning. She just got an email saying contract terminated effective immediately. When I asked HR, they said it was a senior management decision. But I remember Allison being meticulous. She once told me there were some mismatched expenditures, and then she vanished from the system within 48 hours. Tess inhaled deeply, staring down into her coffee, her hand slightly trembling. When I asked Weston about these contracts, he just said it was a confidential project, overseen directly by CFO Tiffany. He told me not to be nosy, then laughed, like I'd asked something stupid. "Kimberly, I feel like I've walked into a hornet's nest." I stayed silent for a moment, then asked softly, "Do you have proof?" Tess nodded and pulled a small black USB drive from her bag. I copied everything: internal emails, payment ledgers, e-signatures. But if this gets out, I could lose my job, maybe even get sued. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice firm. "If you're standing for the truth, you're not alone. You're not a saboteur. You're doing the right thing." She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "I trust you, Kimberly. I've just never dealt with the SEC or this kind of legal mess." I plugged the USB into my laptop. The screen lit up with spreadsheets, records, and transfer logs hidden behind coded aliases. Advision Group LLC, North Bay Media Solutions, Clearstream Digital. No addresses, just strings of Panama bank account numbers. It felt like stripping paint off a wall, only to find rot beneath. Tess looked at me, uneasy. "If I give you this data, I'm betraying the company." I replied, my voice low but unwavering. "No, you're saving it. Aurora needs to know they've been deceived, not hide it." I immediately sent the files to David Cho via an encrypted link, adding a note: "Urgent, potential SEC violation." Less than 10 minutes later, my phone rang. David's tone was direct, his voice steady but tense. "Kimberly, this is real financial fraud. These transactions were stealth withdrawals authorized by Weston and Tiffany. Aurora is a public company. They are required to report this to the SEC. If you're ready to file as a whistleblower, I'll guide you through the proper protocol." I went silent, then said, "Then let's begin. I won't allow justice to be delayed another day." After sending the files, I sat by Tessa's window. The Detroit sky was turning gray, red maple leaves shaking in the season's early chill. Down below, morning commuters hurried past, unaware that just a few floors above, two women had just opened the door to an investigation that could shake an entire corporation. Tess sat beside me, her voice soft but steady. "Kimberly, do you think you'll win? Going up against them won't be easy." I gave a faint smile. "I'm not thinking in terms of winning or losing anymore. I'm thinking about right and wrong, and this time I won't be silent." She looked at me, eyes glistening, then nodded. "Okay." "I'm with you." I gently squeezed Tess's hand, feeling a quiet strength ripple between us. The strength of women once underestimated, now choosing to stand for the truth. I left her apartment as a light rain began to fall. The wind bit colder, the scent of metal and gasoline thick in the Detroit air. I took a deep breath. My lungs stung, but my mind was clear. The door to justice had opened, and once I stepped through, there would be no turning back. Before getting in my car, my phone buzzed. A message from David Cho appeared on the screen. "I've reviewed everything. I'll draft a legal memo, anonymous, and send it directly to Aurora's legal department. That will compel the CEO to initiate an internal investigation. You won't need to go public, at least not yet." I stared at the words, my grip on the phone tightening. Outside, the rain had lightened but grown colder. "Are you sure?" I texted back. "Yes. This is the safest and most lawful approach. Once the documents are in their hands, they can't ignore it." I looked at the streetlights reflected on the hood of my car, thinking of everything that was about to unfold. My life had once been orderly and pristine. Now it was about to be upended. But I knew David was right. If I wanted to bring down this wall of deception, I had to make it collapse from within. I tucked my phone away, started the engine, and drove toward downtown. Rain splattered the windshield, but inside me, for the first time in years, something was burning. Not rage, but a belief in justice. 3 days later, it began. Aurora Dynamics officially launched an internal financial audit, a review of all spending from the past 2 years. Employees were asked to turn in their laptops for data scans. No one said it outright, but everyone knew the truth. Something was deeply wrong between the finance and communications departments. The first update came from Tess on Monday morning. Her voice trembled on the phone. "Kimberly, CEO Soren Patel called me into his office. He asked about the expenses, about Allison Grant, and about Weston's approval signatures. I told him I'd only discovered it recently, and then he just sat in silence for minutes." I heard Tess swallow hard on the other end. "Tiffany just emailed in her resignation, citing health issues and work stress. But everyone knows she's trying to slip away." The rumors spread faster than I expected. At Aurora HQ, the once pristine glass corridors felt eerily quiet. Employees whispered as they passed finance. Internal group chats buzzed. People said Weston and Tiffany were under surveillance, and that the CEO had flown in auditors from Chicago. I sat in my small office at Midwest Connect Media, staring out the window at Detroit's traffic inching along under fading streetlights. Everything was unfolding just as I predicted, but I knew silence for too long could let the story be rewritten. I wouldn't let that happen. I opened my laptop and began a new email. The subject line was simple. Subject: Important. Evidence of financial misconduct by senior managers. I typed slowly, deliberately. "Dear Mr. Soren Patel, I am in possession of evidence related to violations of financial transparency regulations committed by 2 senior managers at Aurora Dynamics, including falsified advertising contracts and undeclared international transactions. I believe that, as a publicly traded company listed on NASDAQ, Aurora has an obligation to report this matter to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. I am willing to cooperate, provide documentation, and testify if necessary. Sincerely, Kimberly Evans, Independent Consultant, Communications Ethics Specialist." I read it over once, then hit send. The moment the message went out, I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, feeling like I'd stepped into a zone with no return. I was no longer an outsider. I was the whistleblower. And in America, that always comes with risk. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Soren replied with just one line. "Thank you, Mrs. Evans. I would like to meet in person, 9 a.m. tomorrow, Guardian Building." I put the phone down and stared out the window. Early snow had begun to fall, light flakes landing softly on the balcony railing. The whole city felt like it was holding its breath. I knew tomorrow morning would not be just a meeting, but the beginning of a war between truth and power, between a betrayed woman and an empire built on secrets. Tuesday morning, Detroit's sky was cloaked in thick gray, and the wind from the river whipped at my coat as I walked through the towering glass doors of the Guardian Building, Aurora Dynamics headquarters. Inside, the air was unusually cold and still. I was led to the 31st floor, the executive boardroom, where light spilled through tall windows onto sleek oak tables. The Aurora Dynamics logo gleamed on the wall like a reminder. This place, once built on reputation, now stood on trial before the truth. Sarine Patel, Aurora's CEO, stood as I entered. He was in his early 50s, of Indian descent, tall, with a voice that was calm but firm. Beside him sat the company's legal counsel, Rebecca Klein, diligently taking notes. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Evans," he said, motioning for me to sit. "I believe we share the same goal, to protect this company from collapse due to wrongdoing." I opened my bag and placed a USB drive and a thick envelope of printed documents on the table. "What you're about to see," I said, "is not rumor. It's evidence." I plugged the USB into his laptop. The screen lit up with the video. Weston and Tiffany kissing in the parking lot. Clear, undeniable. I didn't speak. Then I opened the PDF file titled Silver Horizon Report.pdf, showing the Panama account statements, wire transfers, and 3 fake advertising contracts worth $1.2 million. I pointed to the electronic signatures. "These are the signatures of Weston Evans, Director of Communications, and Tiffany Maxwell, Chief Financial Officer. Both approved fund transfers to shell companies that do not exist." The room grew heavy with silence. Soren removed his glasses, leaning back, eyes steeling. "If this is accurate," he said, "Aurora will be required to file with the SEC in Chicago. This isn't just financial misconduct. It's a violation of federal securities law." I met his gaze, my voice calm but resolute. "I don't want a scandal. I don't want Aurora to fall. I want justice and transparency." Soren remained quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "You're right. We can't hide behind the brand anymore." He turned to Rebecca. "Prepare a whistleblower confidentiality agreement. Mrs. Evans will sign it here." Rebecca opened her case, pulled out a legal document, and handed it to me. I read it carefully. Clear clauses protecting my identity, prohibiting disclosure, and granting immunity from any career retaliation. I signed my name, my hand trembling slightly but firm. Kimberly Evans. Soren looked at me, his voice low. "From this moment, you are considered a cooperating party with the Internal Investigation Committee. I will assign an independent audit team from Chicago. They'll conduct a full review. As for you, prepare yourself. When the truth begins to surface, it will drag up more than you expect." I stood, shook his hand. "I'm ready, Mr. Patel." I've lost everything once by staying silent. This time, I'll speak. As I stepped out of the boardroom, I caught my reflection in the hallway glass. No longer the betrayed wife, but a woman holding the detonator of truth. Outside, light snow drifted over Campus Martius, melting fast on the damp pavement. I drew a deep breath, realizing I had now fully entered a war with no retreat, between justice, reputation, and the memory of who I used to be. 2 days after that meeting, everything inside Aurora Dynamics changed so fast, no one could catch their breath. The door to the legal department remained shut, the office lights burning late into the night. Those who had worked with Weston began receiving emails from the legal compliance department, requesting confirmation on contract approval procedures within communications. All accounting records from the past 2 years were recalled, and Aurora's legal team officially confirmed what no one wanted to believe. The Silver Horizon Holdings Limited account, opened in Panama, listed 2 primary beneficiaries, Weston Evans and Tiffany Maxwell. A string of internal emails was decrypted, including several in which Tiffany issued temporary transfer orders, and Weston approved them within 5 minutes. No one could deny it any longer. A summary report was quickly sent to CEO Soren Patel, and in accordance with the Corporate Transparency Act, 2024, and FATCA, Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, Aurora was obligated to report the incident to the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, in the Chicago region. This was no longer just an internal violation. It had become a federal investigation with potential impacts on the company's stock and reputation. I received an email from Soren. "Thank you for your cooperation. We are taking every necessary legal step. Weston Evans has been suspended indefinitely, pending the investigation outcome." The news spread like wildfire. Local tech media outlets began reporting anonymously on a major internal fraud at Aurora Dynamics. Company shares dipped slightly, employees buzzed with rumors, and the PR department worked around the clock to manage damage control. I knew sooner or later they would trace the source of the data, me. But I had no regrets. That afternoon, Weston showed up at the doorstep of what used to be our home, now just my daughter and me. He stood beneath the awning, his face worn, his suit wrinkled, his eyes wet and lost. When I opened the door, he stepped forward and rasped, "Kimberly, you don't understand. The SEC will destroy me. You could save me. Just say you made a mistake, that it was a misunderstanding." I crossed my arms and looked at him, hollow inside. "A mistake? You kissed your CFO in a parking lot, signed off 3 times on a Panama account, fired someone for asking questions, and you call that a mistake?" His shoulders slumped, voice barely above a whisper. "I know I messed up, but you're destroying everything I built over the past 10 years. I stepped closer, standing straight, looking him dead in the eye. "I'm not destroying anything, Weston. I just turned on the light, and light, by itself, burns through anything dishonest." He stood still, lips trembling, unable to speak. Rain drummed softly on the awning above us, and in that moment I understood. To him, justice meant ruin. To me, it meant salvation. Weston turned and walked down the steps, carrying no flowers this time. I closed the door behind him, surprisingly calm. I hadn't won. I hadn't lost. I had simply chosen truth. On my desk, David Cho's email blinked with one final line. "The SEC has accepted the file. They are reviewing whether to open a formal investigation. Be prepared, Kimberly. The next stage won't just be about truth, but how you protect yourself." I stared at that sentence for a long time, then turned off the screen. In the faint reflection on the window pane, I saw my face no longer trembling, only the stillness of someone who had come too far to turn back. 2 weeks later, Aurora Dynamics reached the point of no return. That morning, the entire executive floor of the Guardian building was sealed off for an emergency board meeting. Frosted glass concealed the room, guards lined the hallway, and employees passing by only dared glance before lowering their heads. The news spread quickly. "The board is meeting. SEC attorneys are present." I stepped into the room, white light illuminating a long oval oak table. At its head sat board chairwoman Miriam Layton, elderly but commanding. Beside her, CEO Soren Patel and 2 SEC attorneys from the Chicago office. The air was thick, courtroom-like. Every board member had a printed copy of the internal investigation report, nearly 200 pages, alongside the USB containing the video and Panama documents I had submitted. The SEC attorney began, The evidence has been verified. Transactions under Silver Horizon Holdings Limited match Aurora Dynamics records. A $1.2 million withdrawal was approved by two senior managers, Weston Evans and Tiffany Maxwell. Both violated financial transparency regulations under the Corporate Transparency Act, and FATCAI sat quietly, fingers interlaced, feeling strangely detached yet intimately bound to this room. Once a symbol of my husband's dreams, now the site of their collapse, as the video of Weston and Tiffany in the parking lot played on the big screen. Silence reigned. Chairwoman Layton closed the file and spoke clearly. Based on the investigation and the recommendation of legal compliance and the SEC, the board unanimously moves to terminate Weston Evans and Tiffany Maxwell, with cause, meaning they forfeit all stock benefits and pending bonuses. HR is tasked with revoking their access, laptops, and company property within 24 hours. Weston sat at the far end of the table, pale and expressionless. He didn't look at me. Tiffany, her hair tied back, face rigid, gripped the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. I felt no triumph, only as if someone had shut the lid on a coffin containing 10 years of my former life. Chairwoman Layton turned to me, her voice softer. Ms. Evans, on behalf of the board, we thank you for choosing truth, even when it wasn't easy. Aurora needs people like you to restore trust, Soren continued, eyes meeting mine solemnly. The board has voted unanimously. We would like to appoint you as Global Communications Director for Aurora Dynamics. You will be responsible for restructuring external affairs and rebuilding the company's image and ethical communication standards. I took a deep breath, looking down at the folder in front of me. That title, a few months ago, it might have moved me to tears. Now, it wasn't a victory, but a responsibility. I looked up and spoke slowly. I accept. But under one condition, all eyes turned toward me. I said, Tess Moreno, who helped collect the data and provided the first pieces of evidence, was suspended during the investigation. I want her reinstated and officially appointed head of accounting. Without her, Aurora wouldn't have found the truth. Chairwoman Layton looked to Soren. He nodded without hesitation. Agreed. It will be done today. The tension in the room eased slightly. A few board members nodded. One even smiled. Chairwoman Layton added, her voice warm. Justice isn't revenge. It's the restoration of balance. Thank you, Kimberly, I only nodded. As I stepped out into the hallway, the quiet was so deep I could hear my heels echo against the marble floor. I glanced back at the Aurora logo behind me. The sunlight from the glass windows bathed it in a glow, as if it were being cleansed of its shadows. And I knew, this journey wasn't over. But today, at least, the truth had been named. A month after the board meeting, as snow blanketed the streets around Campus Martius in Detroit, I received a notice from the Wayne County Courthouse. The divorce filing between Weston Evans and me had been accepted. I stared at the header. Case number 24D0317, Evans versus Evans, feeling both relief and a sharp ache. After 10 years of marriage, everything between us now fit into a half-inch stack of papers stamped in red. The preliminary hearing took place in a small courtroom, warmer than I expected. Outside, snow still fell like powdered salt. David Cho sat beside me, giving a steady nod of reassurance, while across the table, Weston sat with his head bowed, his face so hollow I barely recognized him. He wore a gray suit, a ghost of the confident communications director who once addressed hundreds. Judge Evelyn Carr opened the file and read aloud the findings. Based on verified financial evidence from Aurora Dynamics and the SEC report from the Chicago region, the defendant Weston Evans has admitted to violating financial transparency regulations. Both parties have agreed to a civil settlement in which the defendant will repay $420,000 to plaintiff Kimberly Evans to avoid criminal prosecution and close the matter at the company level. I heard David exhale softly. Weston looked up, eyes glistening. But I felt no anger anymore, only emptiness. He signed the papers with a trembling hand, then set the pen down. In the back row, Martha Klein, the elderly neighbor who once brought me an apple pie the night I uncovered the betrayal, sat quietly. As I stepped out of the courtroom, she gently took my arm and said in a low, warm voice, filled with hard-won wisdom, "Justice isn't revenge, dear. It's repair." I gave a tired smile and nodded. Maybe she was right. I wasn't seeking victory, just for the cracks to be mended, so my daughter could grow up in truth, not illusion. In the final ruling, Judge Carr flipped to a new page. Considering the emotional impact on the minor Meredith Evans, the court recommends 12 months of psychological therapy to support recovery. All therapy expenses will be covered by Mr. Weston Evans. Per the divorce agreement, I nodded in agreement, adding nothing more. Weston remained silent. Between us, there were no more words to mend or to wound. As I left the courthouse, snow still fell heavily. I pulled my collar tight, stood on the steps, and watched the flakes melt on my leather gloves. Martha handed me a cup of hot coffee and said, "Now go live the rest of your life." I whispered back, "I will." But this time, I'll live it honestly, not for anyone else. In the distance, church bells echoed through the snow, mingling with the sound of the streetcar gliding down Woodward. And I knew, in a world grown cold, justice had just found its warmth again. Not in fire, but in light. 3 months after the trial, spring arrived in Detroit, with its first warm winds. Sunlight glistened on the surface of the Detroit River like glass. At the top floor of the Detroit Marriott, at the Renaissance Center, a team of dozens worked tirelessly on the final touches for what the press had dubbed the Gala for Transparency. I, Kimberly Evans, now Global Communications Director of Aurora Dynamics, walked through the grand ballroom, where crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over tables draped in pristine white linen. Every detail, from the stage backdrop and lighting to the slogan "Building Trust in the Age of Truth," had been personally approved by me. Bouquets of white hydrangeas sat precisely at the center of each table, simple yet regal. Tonight, Aurora would face the American media, investors, and shareholders with a declaration that we had recovered, not through a PR campaign, but through truth. A new financial transparency report, the Ethics Rebuilt initiative, and internal whistleblower protection policies would all be unveiled. As technicians adjusted the sound system, I stood by the glass wall facing the river. In the distance, the orange-red sunset reflected off the Guardian building, where it had all begun. In that moment, I understood that justice is not just a verdict, but an entire ecosystem rebuilt atop ruins. I turned to the director's table, where Tess Moreno was reviewing the guest list. She wore a black blazer and a badge reading Head of Accounting, a faint smile on her lips. When she saw me, she raised a thumbs up and joked quietly, "You know, if someone told me last year I'd be attending an Aurora Gala without cooking the books, I wouldn't have believed them." I laughed and replied, "Actually, no one deserves to be here more than you." At precisely 8 p.m., the jazz band began to play the opening tune. I walked onto the stage, a soft spotlight falling over me as hundreds of eyes turned in my direction. I took a deep breath, then lifted the microphone and began the speech I had carefully prepared, though the most important part I had rewritten just that morning. In communications, we sometimes believe the only way to fix a cracked mirror is to shatter it. But I've learned, when a mirror is covered in dust, you don't need to break it. You simply wipe it clean with truth. Transparency isn't about exposing others' faults. It's about having the courage to face your own shadow. The room fell utterly silent. I saw the eyes of employees who once lived in fear now glowing with something new, and in that moment, I knew I had chosen the right way to tell the story. No affair videos, no dramatic exposé, just one truth spoken calmly. As I stepped off stage, Tess was waiting in the wings, smiling proudly. She whispered as I passed, You didn't just clean the mirror, Kimberly. You lit up the whole room. I smiled softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Outside, applause erupted. Not for me, but for a new world being rebuilt on integrity and courage. The lights in the ballroom dimmed, and the large LED screen behind the stage lit up with the words, Gala for Transparency, live on CNBC Detroit. The jazz music softened, and the MC's voice rang out. Please welcome the Global Communications Director of Aurora Dynamics, Kimberly Evans. I stepped onto the stage for the second time that night, surrounded by hundreds of guests in formal attire. Warm golden light bathed my face, catching on the pearl earrings, the only gift I'd kept from my former marriage. Below, the CNBC Detroit cameras panned slowly, broadcasting live across the Michigan region. I scanned the room, took a deep breath, and began the final part of my speech. No longer a corporate report, but a message to everyone who had ever placed their trust in Aurora. Transparency is not just a policy, it's a culture. It's the commitment that no matter how deep the darkness, we still choose the light. Aurora lost its way once, but tonight we stand together, clearing the dust from the mirror so we can finally see ourselves clearly. I paused, letting the silence settle. Then I glanced toward the back row of the room, where I saw Tiffany Maxwell sitting quietly, her hair neatly tied back, a badge on her neck that read, Contract Staff Finance. No special seat, no spotlight. Her face showed no emotion, only the weariness of someone who had once stood at the top and fallen hard. Weston was absent. No one knew where he was. Some said he'd left Detroit, others that he was job hunting in Chicago. But in my heart, his absence was already an answer. I closed the speech with a single, quiet sentence, something I had held in my heart through months of storms. The truth doesn't destroy us. It only destroys what was never worthy of us. For a moment, silence enveloped the room. Then the entire ballroom rose in unison. Applause thundered around me, continuing so long I had to bow twice. The cameras scanned the faces of board members, Soren Patel, Miriam Layton, and the major stakeholders, all applauding. The air in that room wasn't just admiration, it was recognition of a journey from collapse to justice. Chairwoman Layton joined me on stage and shook my hand. Her voice, soft but firm, carried over the microphone. Aurora hasn't just restored its name. We've learned something far greater, a lesson in character. Applause again. I turned toward the grand windows of the ballroom, where the city lights of Detroit shimmered on the surface of the river. In that light, I saw a faint reflection of myself, no longer trembling, no longer afraid, but steady, calm, and free. The gala ended with a song titled A New Dawn. As guests filtered out, Tess approached and took my hand. You did it, Kimberly, she said. I smiled and replied, No, we did it. The buildings along the Detroit River stayed lit all night, as if the entire city had witnessed the rebirth of something long buried. Not hope, not victory, but trust. 1 month after the gala, my daughter and I left our old house in Birmingham, the one that had silently witnessed so much unraveling, and moved into a small apartment in Midtown Detroit, just a few blocks from the river, where the Ambassador Bridge was visible from our balcony. The 7th-floor unit was bright and quiet, with white walls and wide windows that caught the morning sun. I hung a small print that read, Begin again. No flourish, no noise, just a reminder that I was still alive, and this time I was living for myself. Work at Aurora had stabilized. I stepped back from the high-pressure meetings and focused on a project I'd dreamt about during countless sleepless nights, a podcast called Women Who Rebuilt, recorded at WDET 101.9 FM Detroit. Each episode was a real conversation between women who had fallen and then rebuilt their lives. I didn't want to tell shocking stories. I wanted to speak of resilience, of cracks, and how light gets through them. I remember the first recording, a small studio, walls lined with acoustic foam, a light wood table, and two sleek black microphones facing each other. I sat in a beige chair, eyes closed, breathing deep as the red, on-air light lit up. My voice came out low and calm. Welcome to Women Who Rebuilt, where we don't talk about failure, but about how people recover from ruin. I'm Kimberly Evans, and today we begin with Chapter 1. Justice as Healing. My first guest was Martha Klein, my former neighbor, who once stood beside me outside the courthouse and said the words I've carried ever since. Justice isn't revenge, dear. It's repair. I asked her about life after losing her husband to cancer and how she found quiet joy tending to her backyard apple trees. She spoke slowly, warmly, truthfully. We never go back to who we were before the pain. But if we're patient, we become someone new, someone who can understand another's sorrow. In that moment, I realized life doesn't need to be healed in dazzling ways. Sometimes, it just needs to be told, to be heard, and to be believed. The first episode aired on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and WDET's website. I didn't expect much, just hoped a few hundred might listen. But 3 months later, the comms team reported back a number that stunned me. Over 500,000 listens, mostly women aged 40 to 70, many of whom emailed to say they played my podcast while cooking, driving, or simply needing someone to tell them it would be okay. I read every email, every thank you note, and realized something unexpected. Justice doesn't only come from a court or a ruling. It comes from one person telling the truth, so others know they're not alone. That night, I stepped onto the balcony and looked out over the Detroit River. In the distance, the Ambassador Bridge shimmered like a silver ribbon in the dark. I held a cup of ginger tea, leaned on the railing, and smiled. I was no longer Weston Evans' wife. I was Kimberly, a survivor, a truth-teller, and someone rebuilding the world on her own terms. In the wind sweeping across the bridge, I thought, maybe justice isn't just an ending, but the beginning of our truest life. One Saturday morning in early summer, I drove with Meredith to the Detroit Counseling Center, a small building nestled in the New Center District, where sun always poured through the windows. Dr. Renee Harris, a child psychologist, greeted us with a gentle smile. Her office was painted cream, lined with bookshelves, and a corner for kids to draw. I sat on a long couch, watching Meredith carefully place her teddy bear on the table before turning to me with eyes suddenly too serious for a 7-year-old. "Are you happy, Mommy?" I froze. A small question, but it reached the deepest place I'd been avoiding. I smiled softly, brushing her hair. "Now I am. Because I don't have to pretend anymore." Meredith looked at me, then smiled in that knowing way children often do, as if they understand more than we think. She turned back to her paper and drew a house with 2 people, a mother and daughter, beneath a sky full of light. I looked at the picture and felt like I was finally allowed to breathe, fully, after years of trying to live inside someone else's version of me. That therapy session had no tears, just a quiet sense of peace. As we left the center, I held her small, warm hand. We walked along Woodward Avenue, bought vanilla ice cream, and watched streetcars pass by. Detroit, a city of comebacks and new beginnings, seemed to smile with us. A week later, Tess Moreno called. Her voice held a new kind of joy I'd never heard before. "Kimberly, I just resigned from Aurora. I'm starting my own firm, ClearPoint Consulting. I want to build a service for financial ethics and corporate culture advisory." I smiled, not surprised. "Great name, and you know what? I want 20% equity." Tess laughed over the phone. "I knew you'd say that. But honestly, I just want you with me. Aurora may be the last chapter, but what we learned there deserves a new one." A few days later, we met at Starbucks Reserve Detroit, housed in the old Guardian Bank building, red brick laced with golden light. Our table by the window faced the river, afternoon sun slanting over steaming cappuccinos. Tess opened her laptop and laid out plans for a new event. It's called Women in Integrity, a space for female leaders, therapists, and those who've faced workplace betrayal. Not just a seminar, but a sanctuary, a place where women can speak truth without fear of punishment. I nodded, pride swelling silently. We started from wreckage, Tess. Now it's time to plant trust, she smiled and raised her cup. To the women brave enough to begin again. I clinked mine against hers. And to those who choose truth, even when it costs them everything. Outside the window, the Detroit River blushed with sunset. I looked toward the Ambassador Bridge and felt stillness settle inside me. No more pain to outrun, only connections growing between me, my daughter, Tess, and every woman learning to live honestly in a world of masks. And maybe that's the ultimate form of justice, not delivered by verdict, but by choosing to love life again in our own truth. A year later, Detroit had changed, and so had I. Aurora Dynamics had become a model for transparency, while I transitioned from corporate leadership into community work, a path with no paycheck, but filled with purpose. I spent more than 6 months finalizing legal paperwork, and in spring 2025, the Midwest Integrity Fund was officially recognized as a 501c3 nonprofit. Born from my story, the fund's mission belonged to hundreds of women, those financially manipulated by partners, families, or employers. We partnered with the Michigan Women's Foundation, offering workshops on money management, whistleblower rights, and psychological counseling for those seeking to reclaim control. I wanted them to know justice isn't a privilege of the powerful. It begins with understanding and owning your own money. On launch day, I sat in a small office overlooking Jefferson Avenue. On the wall hung a black and white photo frame of 3 women: Martha Klein, who taught me that justice is repair; Tess, who dared to tell the truth; and Meredith, my daughter, who made me believe in the future. I realized this was no longer just my fight. It had become a legacy of truth and courage. When the Women's Leadership in Detroit 2025, the Midwest's largest female leadership conference, invited me to speak, it took me 2 days to write my speech. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted every word to come from the truest part of what I'd lived. That morning, the TCF Center was packed with over 2,000 people. The lights dimmed as I stepped on stage in a soft ivory suit, tailored and simple. In the front row sat Martha and Tess, smiling, as if walking every step of the journey with me. I began. 2 years ago, I thought justice was something separate from me. A courtroom, a verdict, something others delivered. But I was wrong. Justice begins the moment we stop hiding who we are, stop excusing what's false, and choose to step into the light. The hall fell silent. The only sound was the click of cameras. I looked across the crowd. Entrepreneurs, students, workers, each woman carrying her own untold story. I ended with a final line, steady and slow. Transparency isn't just a business principle. It's how we love ourselves. Through truth, applause thundered through the auditorium like a wave. Some rose to their feet, tears glistening. I bowed, knowing that this time, the light shining on me wasn't recognition. It was resonance. Outside, spring had arrived in Detroit. Cherry blossoms lined the riverbank, and the breeze carried the scent of coffee from a small midtown cafe. I stepped out into the sun, felt its warmth on my shoulders, and heard Martha whisper behind me, "See, dear?" "You turned your pain into purpose," I smiled and replied. "Not just purpose, a path others can follow to find themselves." In that moment, I realized I was truly free. Not because I'd escaped the past, but because I'd turned it into light for someone else's road. One spring morning, I woke earlier than usual. A pale sunlight slipped through the curtains and onto the light rug of my midtown apartment. I laced up my shoes, put in my earbuds, and jogged along the Detroit Riverwalk, the asphalt still damp with dew. The early air was crisp, blending the scent of river water with coffee from nearby cafes. In the distance, Belle Isle Bridge arched into view, its curves like ripples connecting sky and water. I slowed my pace, stopping at the railing to look out over the river. The sunlight danced on the surface, scattering into 1,000 glittering shards. Like broken glass reassembled, imperfect but beautiful in its own way. I smiled softly, realizing that was the shape of my life. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, and there it was. A name I thought I'd long forgotten. Weston. The message was short, no embellishments, no excuses. I'm sorry. I lost everything. I stared at the words for a long time. The river breeze tugged at my hair. I inhaled, then slowly pressed delete. No anger, no triumph, just closure. I didn't need his apology. What was lost no longer deserved to be redeemed. I tucked the phone away, zipped up my jacket, and kept running. My stride matched my breath, my feet steady on the path. Ahead, the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the water. Radiant, clear, unhidden. My voice played in the closing voiceover of a special podcast episode I'd recorded the night before. The final chapter in a 2-year journey. He lost everything through lies, and I found everything through truth. If you believe truth has the power to heal, share this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me, what have you had to rebuild in your life? Because sometimes, all it takes is one honest word to light the way forward.
My husband thought he was picking up his future. Instead, he was walking straight into his reckoning, and I had the best seat in the house for the show. Let me set the scene. Tuesday, November 12th, Nashville International Airport, Terminal C. I'm standing at baggage claim, exhausted from 3 days organizing Charleston's wedding expo, when I see him. My husband of 14 years, Marshall Hawthorne. Dr. Marshall Hawthorne, holding a handmade poster board that says, "Welcome home, beautiful," with little hearts drawn around it. Here's the thing about Marshall. In our entire relationship, the most romantic gesture he ever managed was ordering takeout from the nice Italian place instead of the cheap one. The man once gave me a Costco gift card for our anniversary. He said it was practical. So you can imagine my shock when I see him with not just a poster, but an enormous bouquet of peonies. My favorite flowers that I've mentioned approximately 800 times always met with his blank stare and a comment about how flowers just die anyway. But wait, it gets better. I'm standing there, partially hidden behind a family reunion, watching my husband shift his weight like a teenager at prom. He's wearing the navy cashmere sweater I bought him last Christmas, the one he claimed made him look too fancy for the hospital. His hair is actually styled. Marshall Hawthorne, who considers running his fingers through his hair adequate grooming, used product. And then I see her. She comes running through the terminal like she's in a Nicholas Sparks movie. Long dark hair flying, designer carry-on bouncing, smile that could sell toothpaste. She can't be more than 28, maybe 30. She's wearing a dress, at an airport. Who wears a dress on a plane unless they're trying to impress someone? Marshall's face lights up like Christmas morning. He drops the poster and opens his arms. She launches herself at him, and he catches her, spinning her around while she wraps her legs around his waist. In the middle of Nashville International Airport, I'm standing 30 feet away, watching my husband embrace another woman with more passion than he's shown me in 5 years. And the worst part? I recognize the watch on his wrist, the Tag Heuer I saved for 6 months to buy him for his 40th birthday. There it is, pressed against this woman's back as he holds her like she's the only person in the world. They kiss, not a peck, a full-on movie trailer. Get a room kiss that makes the elderly couple next to me look away. I should be crying, right? That's what I thought I'd do if I ever caught my husband cheating. But I'm not crying. I'm furious. And more than that, I'm calculating. See, here's what Marshall doesn't know. I'm Vera Hawthorne, and I plan events for a living. Not just any events. Luxury events. Weddings for Nashville's elite, charity galas, corporate parties where million-dollar deals get made over champagne. I orchestrate perfect moments for a living. I control narratives. I turn visions into reality flawlessly. And right now, watching my husband play out this airport romance fantasy with his pharmaceutical rep. Oh yes, I recognize her now. Lila something or other from hospital functions. I'm already planning the greatest event of my career. My divorce party. Let me back up. My name is Vera Hawthorne. I'm 42, and until 3 minutes ago, I thought I had a decent marriage. We live in a gorgeous colonial in Forest Hills, one of Nashville's most exclusive gated communities. I drive a paid-off Mercedes GLE. We have dinner parties. We're country club members. On paper, we're living the dream. We don't have kids. I wanted them once. Marshall always said later, when the practice is more established, when we're more financially secure. Eventually, I stopped asking. I threw myself into my business instead. Turned Elegance Events into Nashville's most sought-after planning company. Built something that was mine. Looking back, I can see when things shifted. About 2 years ago, Marshall started working later, going to more conferences, paying more attention to his appearance. I notice everything. It's my job. But I convinced myself it was a midlife crisis thing. What a fool he thinks I am. Because here's what Marshall doesn't realize. I'm not just some trophy wife who plans parties. I built my business from nothing. I negotiate contracts with vendors who'd eat him alive. I manage bridezillas who make hostile takeovers look friendly. I've dealt with catastrophes that would make a battlefield surgeon weep, all in heels and a smile. Marshall Hawthorne has no idea who he's dealing with. I watch them break apart. She's giggling while he retrieves her luggage. They walk right past me, close enough that I smell her perfume, something floral and expensive, close enough to see the small Tiffany & Co. bag hanging from her wrist. Oh, Marshall. I pull out my phone and start taking pictures, quick snaps that look like I'm scrolling social media. The two of them walking, his arm around her waist. Marshall loading her bags into his car, the Audi Q7 we bought together, that I make half the payments on. A clear shot of them kissing against the driver's side door. I take video too. Nothing suspicious, just a woman on her phone like everyone else. They drive away. Marshall doesn't glance toward my parking spot 3 rows over. Why would he? He thinks I'm landing tomorrow afternoon. He thinks he has another 24 hours to play house before his boring wife comes home. I stand in that parking garage for 5 minutes after they leave, and I start to laugh. Not sad, hysterical laughter. Genuine, this is actually hilarious laughter. Because Marshall has made the classic mistake every cheater makes. He underestimated me. He sees the woman who plans parties, who makes sure his dry cleaning is picked up and his bourbon is stocked, who smiles at his colleagues' boring stories and doesn't complain when he cancels date night. He doesn't see the woman who negotiated a 6-figure contract with Vanderbilt last month, who has personal cell numbers of half the judges in Davidson County, who knows exactly how much we have in every account because I've been managing our finances for 14 years while he played doctor. I get in my car, but I don't drive home. I point toward downtown, toward my office on Broadway, where I keep files on everything, every receipt, bank statement, credit card charge from the last 5 years, because documentation is everything, and I'm about to document the hell out of Marshall Hawthorne's biggest mistake. I'm not some passive victim waiting to be discarded. I'm Vera Hawthorne. I've planned events for governors, senators, country music stars, and Nashville's wealthiest families. I've coordinated weddings with 500 guests and million-dollar budgets. If Marshall wants to play games, I'm about to teach him he's been playing checkers while I've been playing chess. This is going to be the event of a lifetime. My magnum opus. The party to end all parties. And Marshall Hawthorne is going to be the guest of honor at his own destruction. I park behind the office building and take the elevator to the 3rd floor. It's after 7 on a Tuesday, so the building is empty except for cleaning crew. I unlock my office and flip on the lights. This office has been my sanctuary for 8 years. The place where I built something real. While Marshall was building his orthopedic practice and apparently his secret relationship, I was building an empire. I sit down and open my laptop. I pull up our joint bank accounts first. And there it is. A paper trail lit up with neon signs. Regular transfers to a Venmo account. Small enough not to raise red flags. 200 here, 150 there. But when I scroll back 18 months, we're talking over $15,000. Charges at restaurants I've never been to. Fleming's Steakhouse on a Tuesday when Marshall said he was working late. The Distillery on a Friday when he had a consultation. Adele's on Valentine's Day when he claimed the hospital board meeting ran long. I actually felt guilty that night. Guilty for being upset he missed our dinner reservation. He told me the board ordered fancy catering, discussed budget allocations for hours. I believed him. Hotel charges. Not many. Apparently Marshall isn't even good at cheating. But there are a few. The Hutton Hotel last March. Thompson, Nashville in July. 506 lofts in September. Then the real kicker. Tiffany & Co. for $2,847.82, dated October 28th, 2 weeks ago, on our joint credit card. You know what Marshall got me for our 13th anniversary? A spa gift certificate. To a strip mall day spa next to a Panera Bread. Because you work so hard, he said. I was grateful. I posted about it on Facebook with a heart emoji. Best husband ever. Meanwhile, he's dropping almost $3,000 at Tiffany for his girlfriend. I screenshot everything. Every transaction, every charge, every suspicious date. I email them to myself at a private Gmail account Marshall doesn't know about. Then I dig deeper. Marshall isn't tech-savvy. He uses the same password for everything. His birthday plus MD. I've known this for years. So it takes me 30 seconds to access his iCloud account. I'm in his photo stream. Hundreds of photos. Lila at restaurants. Lila at Centennial Park. Lila on a weekend trip to Gatlinburg. 3 months ago, when Marshall told me he was at a medical conference in Memphis. Selfies of them together at the Bluebird Cafe. Pinewood Social. All the trendy spots Marshall said were too loud when I suggested we go. Then I find the treasure. A text thread between Marshall and Rick. Rick Chambers, Marshall's college roommate. Best man at our wedding. Marshall. Taking her to the Gulch tomorrow. Finally pulling the trigger. Rick. About time, man. You've been talking about leaving Vera for 2 years. 2 years? 2 years he's been discussing leaving me. Marshall. I know. But the timing has to be right. After the holidays. Don't want to ruin Christmas, you know. How considerate. He's perfectly fine ruining our marriage, but God forbid he ruins Christmas. Rick. You're too nice, just rip the Band-Aid off. Marshall. Soon. Just need everything in place. The apartment lease is signed, and Lila's excited about moving in together. Marshall has an apartment. A lease. In the Gulch. One of Nashville's most expensive neighborhoods. Rick. What about the house? Marshall. Vera can have it. I don't care. I just want out. How generous. Marshall Hawthorne, philanthropist. Marshall. Met with the lawyer yesterday. He says as long as we don't have kids, it should be pretty straightforward. Rick. See? Nothing to worry about. Vera will probably be relieved anyway. You guys haven't been happy in years. Haven't been happy in years. That's what Marshall tells people. That we haven't been happy. Like this is mutual. Marshall. You're right. This is for the best. For both of us. Rick. When are you telling her? Marshall. After New Year's. I'll do the holidays. Make it nice for her one last time, then sit her down in January. Make it nice for me one last time. Like I'm a charity case. I sit back and laugh. Not a pleasant sound. Because Marshall doesn't understand. I'm not waiting to be discarded. I'm Vera Hawthorne. I've planned events for Nashville's elite. I've managed crises that would make grown men cry. If Marshall wants games, he's about to learn he's outmatched. I spend 2 hours documenting everything. Every photo, text message, bank statement, hotel receipt. I create a folder structure that would make a forensic accountant weep with joy. Then I research divorce attorneys. The best in Nashville. The ones who handle high-net-worth divorces. The ones who destroy cheating spouses. Victoria Blackwell is a legend. She's represented half the country music divorces in the last decade. Absolutely ruthless protecting her clients. I fill out her website contact form. Urgent matter regarding divorce, substantial assets involved. Evidence of affair and financial misconduct. Need consultation ASAP. I do the same for 3 other top-tier attorneys. Always have a backup plan. By 10 p.m., my phone has been buzzing. 5 missed calls from Marshall. 7 text messages. Marshall. Hey, honey, just checking you landed okay in Charleston. Call me when you can. Marshall. Getting worried. You usually text when you land. Marshall. Vera? Everything okay? Marshall. Probably asleep by now. Have a great last day tomorrow. Miss you. Marshall. Love you. Marshall, don't forget we have the hospital gala planning meeting Friday. Need you there. You're so much better at this stuff than me. Love you, miss you, need you. The audacity. The absolute breathtaking audacity of this man sending loving texts while at his secret apartment with his girlfriend. I don't respond. Let him think I'm exhausted and went to bed early. Let him think everything is fine. Because tomorrow, I'm meeting with divorce attorneys. Tomorrow, I'm putting together a plan that will make every event I've coordinated look like a child's birthday party. Tomorrow, Marshall Hawthorne's fantasy life starts crumbling. But tonight, I drive home. To our house in Forest Hills, the house Marshall so generously says I can keep. I pull into the driveway at 10:45. The house is dark. I sit in my car, looking at our home. The colonial with white columns I fell in love with 14 years ago. The azalea bushes I planted. The porch where we used to sit and drink wine before Marshall got too busy. I've built a life here. A good life. And Marshall is ready to throw it away for a 28-year-old who probably thinks Nashville is the capital of Tennessee. We'll see about that. I unlock the front door. Everything is exactly as I left it, Saturday morning. My coffee mug in the sink, the book on the coffee table, the throw blanket on the couch. Home, except it doesn't feel like home anymore. It feels like a museum exhibit. I pour wine, the expensive Pinot Noir Marshall bought for a dinner party, and sit at the kitchen table with my laptop. I have work to do, research to conduct, a strategy to develop. In 3 days, I have a consultation with Victoria Blackwell. I'm walking in with enough evidence to bury Marshall Hawthorne so deep he'll need a mining team to find his way out. The best part? He has no idea it's coming. He thinks he has until January. He thinks he's in control. Marshall Hawthorne is about to learn the most important lesson of his life. Never underestimate the woman you betrayed, especially when that woman makes her living turning dreams into reality and nightmares into unforgettable events. Wednesday morning, I wake at 6 a.m. and for 3 seconds, I forget my entire life is a lie. Then reality crashes back. Marshall thinks I'm in Charleston. Marshall is at his secret apartment with Lila. Marshall has been planning to leave me for 2 years. I should feel devastated. Instead, I feel remarkably clear-headed. I make coffee and check emails. 3 divorce attorneys already responded. All can see me this week. Victoria Blackwell's office had a cancellation for Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Fortuitous timing. I confirm appointments. Victoria Blackwell on Friday. James Patterson at Patterson & Associates Thursday morning. Linda Walsh at Westwood Family Law Thursday afternoon. Then I text Marshall. Me. Sorry. Fell asleep so early. Long day. Conference is great. Miss you too. See you tomorrow afternoon. His response comes within 30 seconds. Marshall. No worries. Glad you're having a good time. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Love you. Love you. The hypocrisy is almost impressive. I spend Wednesday working. 3 client meetings. Virtual, thankfully. Between meetings, I research Tennessee divorce law, community property versus equitable distribution, how courts view dissipation of marital assets, what happens when one spouse uses joint funds to finance an affair. Turns out, judges really don't like that. Tennessee has fault-based divorce. Adultery absolutely affects how assets get divided. Marshall has made every possible mistake. Used joint funds for his affair, documented it all on shared accounts, confessed his plans in text messages, bought expensive gifts for his girlfriend on our credit card. Marshall Hawthorne, brilliant orthopedic surgeon, is an absolute moron at infidelity. By Wednesday evening, I've compiled 47 pages of evidence, meticulously organized, labeled, dated, cross-referenced, bank statements, screenshots, photos, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, the Tiffany receipt, everything. I save it to 3 cloud storage services and email copies to myself. Then I print 2 physical copies, one for my office, one for a safety deposit box Marshall doesn't know exists. Thursday morning, I'm up at 5 a.m., first attorney consultation at 9. I dress carefully. Navy Brooks Brothers pantsuit, cream silk blouse, pearls. Professional. Put together. The look says, successful businesswoman who deserves respect, not falling apart and desperate. James Patterson's office is in the Gulch. Ironically, probably near Marshall's love nest. All glass and chrome. Very expensive looking. James Patterson is mid-50s, expensive suit, firm handshake. The kind of smile that costs $300 an hour. Mrs. Hawthorne, he says, I understand you're dealing with an urgent situation. That's putting it mildly. I slide my 47-page document across his desk. His eyebrows rise as he flips through pages, then rise higher, then practically disappear. This is comprehensive. I'm an event planner. Organization is kind of my thing. I can see that. He reaches the Tiffany receipt and his mouth twitches. Mrs. Hawthorne, in 23 years of practicing family law, I have never seen a case this well documented on day one. Is that good? Very good. For you. Less good for your husband. I tell him everything. The airport, the flowers, the embrace, the systematic documentation. And your husband doesn't know you know? He thinks I'm in Charleston until this afternoon. He thinks everything is fine. Good. Keep it that way. He leans back. Tennessee is an equitable distribution state. But in cases where one spouse dissipated marital assets to finance an affair, courts factor that in. He used joint funds for hotels, dinners, jewelry for his mistress. That's dissipation. What does that mean for me? You have an excellent case for more than 50% of marital assets. We can argue he owes you reimbursement. If he fights you, we have enough ammunition to bury him. Validation floods through me. However, I notice you don't have children. That simplifies things. No custody battles. We're looking at asset division and possibly alimony. I own my own business, Elegance Events. Last year I cleared $230,000 in profit. His eyebrows rise. And your husband's income? Orthopedic surgeon. Around $450,000 annually, plus bonuses. So there's a disparity, but not massive. You're both high earners. That works in your favor. You're not financially dependent. That narrative plays well. We talk strategy, timeline, expectations. He explains Tennessee requires grounds for divorce. Adultery qualifies. Temporary injunctions to prevent draining accounts. Discovery, depositions, potential trial. But honestly, with evidence like this, most defendants settle. Going to trial means this becomes public record. His affair, his spending, all of it. Most professionals want to avoid that. Next is Linda Walsh at Westwood Family Law. Green Hills office. Less flashy, more intimidating. Linda Walsh is tiny, early 60s, looks like someone's grandmother but has shark eyes. She flips through my documentation at lightning speed. When I'm finished, she looks up. Do you want to hurt him, or do you want to win? What's the difference? Hurting him feels good in the moment. Winning means you get what you deserve and move on intact. Both are valid, but they require different strategies. I want to win. But if hurting him is part of winning, I'm okay with that. Linda Walsh smiles. Terrifying. Then we'll get along just fine. She's more aggressive than James Patterson, direct about what we can demand and prove, leverage the affair evidence, freeze joint accounts, hire a forensic accountant to trace every dollar Marshall spent on Lila. Men like your husband, successful, arrogant, convinced they're smarter than everyone, they make mistakes. You've documented all of them beautifully. How far do you want to take this? As far as I need to. Good answer. By 2 p.m., I have one more stop. The bank. I walk into First Tennessee Bank on West End and ask about our accounts. Sandra, the banker who's helped us for years, greets me warmly. Mrs. Hawthorne, what can I do for you? I need to understand our accounts. I'm concerned about security. Over 45 minutes, I learn exactly what we have everywhere. Withdrawal limits, protections to prevent one spouse from draining accounts. Turns out, not many protections exist. Marshall could theoretically withdraw everything tomorrow. Is there a way to require dual authorization for large withdrawals? Not on standard joint accounts. However, if you're concerned, you could open a separate account in just your name and transfer your portion there. And if my husband asks? Sandra gives me a look suggesting she's seen this movie before. Your financial security is important, Mrs. Hawthorne. You have every right to protect your assets. I don't move money yet. That would tip Marshall off. But I make note of everything. And I open a new business account for Elegance Events. in just my name, that Marshall has no access to and no knowledge of, just in case. By 3:45, according to my fake itinerary, my flight from Charleston is landing at 4:30. I drive to the airport and park where my car's been sitting since Tuesday. At 4:15, I text Marshall. Me. Just landed. Grabbing my bag and heading home. See you soon. Marshall. Great. I'll be home around 6. Want me to pick up dinner? Me. That would be amazing. I'm exhausted. Marshall. Thai food from that place you like? Me. Perfect. Look at us. The perfect couple. Coordinating dinner. It would be sweet if it weren't completely hollow. I drive home, following the route from the airport. I pull into our driveway at 5:20. The house is empty. I walk through with new eyes, seeing everything differently. I try to remember the last time Marshall and I were intimate. 6 months? 8? Longer? I convinced myself it was normal. We were busy, in our 40s, married 14 years. Now I realize things weren't cooling off for Marshall. He was just getting his needs met elsewhere. I pull out my phone. Tomorrow, Friday the 15th, I have my consultation with Victoria Blackwell at 3 p.m. The hospital gala is December 14th. And Marshall plans to ask for a divorce in January, after I've done all the emotional labor of making Christmas perfect. Well, I have news for Marshall Hawthorne. I'm not waiting until January. Marshall's car arrives at exactly 6 p.m. I force myself to breathe normally, relax my shoulders, plaster on my smile. He walks in carrying Thai kitchen bags. Same Marshall, same rumpled work clothes, same tired smile. It was great, I tell him, accepting his cheek kiss, which is all we do now. Exhausting but great. We eat Thai food and talk like everything is normal. Marshall tells me about a complicated surgery. I improvise Charleston conference details. How's work been otherwise? I ask. The usual. Lots of follow-ups. Couple of emergency consults. He drinks water. Oh, I need your help with that hospital gala planning. The committee meeting is Friday afternoon. You can make it, right? Friday afternoon. When I'll actually be in Victoria Blackwell's office, planning his destruction. Absolutely, I say with a smile. Wouldn't miss it. Friday afternoon, 3 p.m. sharp, I walk into Victoria Blackwell's office in the Pinnacle building downtown. The woman is a force of nature. Mid-50s, impeccably tailored gray suit, silver hair in a sharp bob, eyes that could cut glass. She's already reading my 47-page document. Mrs. Hawthorne, she says without looking up. Sit down. This is fascinating. I sit. Wait. Watch her flip through pages with lightning speed and laser focus. Finally, she looks up. Your husband is an idiot. I'm starting to realize that. No, I mean clinically stupid when it comes to covering his tracks. I've seen seasoned criminals with better operational security. She taps the document. This is gift-wrapped evidence. Did he take a class in how to spectacularly fail at having an affair? Despite everything, I laugh. He's very smart about bones, less smart about everything else. Clearly. Victoria leans back. Let me be direct. You have 3 options. 1. We file immediately. Use this evidence to push for a favorable settlement. You walk away with more than your fair share plus reimbursement. Clean option. Fast, efficient, relatively painless. What's option 2? Long game. We monitor activities, gather more evidence, wait for the most strategically advantageous timing, right before a major professional milestone. Then strike. Revenge option. Slower, more satisfying, potentially more lucrative. And option 3? Victoria's smile is predatory. The public education option. We file, refuse to settle quietly, go to trial, make every detail public record, every hotel receipt, every text message, every dollar spent on his mistress. It all comes out in open court where reporters can access it, colleagues can read it. Professional reputation takes a permanent hit. That sounds expensive. It is. Also extremely effective if your goal is making sure he never forgets what he did. She pauses. But what I need to know? What do you actually want? Revenge is fun, but not always strategic. What's your end game? I think about this. Really think. I want Marshall to hurt. to lose something valuable, to understand consequences. But more, I want to win. Walk away with dignity intact, finances secure, life ready for whatever's next. I want Marshall to know he made the biggest mistake of his life underestimating me. I want option one, but I want him to know it's happening at the worst possible moment. I want the element of surprise. And I want him to understand I knew everything, was 3 steps ahead, and he never had a chance. Victoria's grin could light up a stadium. Now that is something I can work with. Tell me, does your husband have any major professional events coming up? I think through Marshall's schedule, which I've been managing for years. The hospital is hosting a donor gala December 14th. Marshall is receiving an award for excellence in orthopedic surgery. Black tie, all major donors, hospital board, local media coverage. Perfect. And you're involved in planning this event? I'm the lead planner. Elegance Events is handling the entire gala. Victoria actually laughs. Oh, this is too good. So you'll be there, professionally, watching your husband receive an excellence award while knowing his life is about to implode. Mrs. Hawthorne, I think you and I are going to get along beautifully. We spend 90 minutes on strategy. Victoria explains we'll file divorce papers the week after the gala. Close enough that Marshall won't have time to hide assets, but far enough from the event that I maintain my professional reputation. With evidence this strong, most attorneys would advise immediate settlement, Victoria says. The alternative is trial and having this become public. Marshall's attorney will explain this. He'll understand fighting you is professional suicide. What if he fights anyway? Then we go to trial and destroy him. But honestly, men like your husband are cowards. They'll do anything to avoid public humiliation. He'll settle. How much can I expect? Victoria pulls out a calculator. I give her all the numbers. House equity, retirement accounts, savings, investments. She runs numbers. Conservatively, total marital assets of approximately $1.6 million. In a straight 50-50 split, you'd get $800,000. But given dissipation of assets and fault-based divorce grounds, I'd argue 60-40 in your favor. That puts you at $960,000. And the money he spent on Lila? That $15,000 plus? We demand full reimbursement. He pays you back every penny out of his share. $1 million. My share of a marriage that turned out to be elaborate fiction. When do we start? Today. I'll have my paralegal draw up initial paperwork. You sign documents, provide additional financial information, then we wait. You go back to normal life. Plan that gala. Smile at your husband. Play perfect wife for exactly 4 more weeks. Then, the week after he accepts his excellence award, we serve him with divorce papers. I leave Victoria's office at 4:45, feeling lighter than I have in days. I have a plan, an advocate, a strategy. Now I just have to survive 4 weeks. Marshall is home when I arrive, which is unusual for Friday evening. He's in the kitchen. Delicious smell from the oven. You're cooking? I ask, genuinely surprised. Thought I'd make your favorite. Chicken piccata. He's wearing an apron. When did we get an apron? You've been working so hard. Figured you could use a nice dinner. Suspicious. Marshall hasn't cooked in 3 years. That's so sweet. What's the occasion? No occasion. Just wanted to do something nice for my wife. We eat dinner, and it's actually good. We talk about the gala, the guest list, the award he's receiving. He's excited. I couldn't have gotten this far without you, he says, squeezing my hand. You've always supported me, Vera. Always been there. I don't say it enough, but I appreciate you. I want to throw wine in his face. I want to tell him I know everything. But I don't. I squeeze his hand back and smile. That's what partners do. We support each other. The next 3 weeks are a masterclass in compartmentalization. Days, I'm Vera Hawthorne, successful event planner, coordinating every detail of the hospital gala. Nights, I'm Vera Hawthorne, future divorcee, meeting with Victoria's paralegal, signing documents, planning Marshall's destruction. Marshall continues his double life with confidence. He's being suspiciously attentive. More dinners, more conversations. He even suggests a movie one weekend. I agree. We share popcorn. I laugh at appropriate moments. The whole time I'm thinking about how he's probably texting Lila. Thanksgiving comes. I host, as always. Marshall's parents from Kentucky. His sister Diane and husband from Memphis. I cook turkey, make homemade stuffing, bake 3 pies, play gracious hostess while Marshall's mother tells me I really should think about having children. We're happy as we are, Marshall says, arm around me. Besides, Vera's career is really taking off. Right, honey? Right, I agree, smiling while internally screaming. By December 14th, I'm running on pure adrenaline and spite. The gala is tonight. Marshall will receive his award. I will smile and clap and pretend to be proud. And then, in exactly 5 days, December 19th at 6 p.m., a process server will knock on our door. The gala is perfect. Of course it is, because I planned it. Schermerhorn Symphony Center looks spectacular. Lighting exactly right. Flower arrangements stunning. Catering impeccable. 250 guests in black tie, drinking expensive wine. I'm wearing a navy blue gown, Marshall complimented. You look beautiful, he said, and sounded like he meant it. Marshall receives his award at 8 p.m. The hospital CEO gives a speech about excellence and dedication. Marshall walks up, accepts his crystal trophy, gives a humble speech about how he couldn't have achieved any of this without his incredible wife. Everyone applauds. Several people smile at me. One colleague mouths, "Lucky guy." I smile back. I clap. I play my role perfectly. And I think about December 19th. After the ceremony, there's dancing. Marshall asks me to dance. We sway to generic jazz while he tells me how grateful he is. This night wouldn't have been possible without you, he says. You made it perfect. That's my job, I tell him. Not just the event planning. Everything. Our life together. You make it all work. I want to laugh. Our life together. The life where he has a secret apartment and a girlfriend. We make it work together, I say instead. The evening ends around 11 p.m. Marshall is in such a good mood he's practically glowing. His award sits in the back seat. His career is thriving. His wife planned a perfect event. His girlfriend is waiting for him to pull the trigger on the divorce he's been planning. Everything is going according to Marshall's plan. Except it's not. December 19th arrives with cold gray weather that feels appropriate for ending a marriage. I've spent 5 days in surreal calm. The process server is scheduled at 6 p.m. sharp. Marshall will be home. I made sure by telling him I wanted a nice dinner to celebrate the gala's success. He seemed touched. That's so thoughtful, honey. I'd love that. At 5:45 p.m., I'm in our living room wearing jeans and a sweater. Comfortable clothes for comfortable lies. When I hear Marshall's car. My heart pounds, but my hands are steady. Marshall walks in with wine and a smile. Got your favorite Pinot Noir. Should I open it now or let it breathe? Let it breathe, I say. We have time. At exactly 6 p.m., there's a knock. Marshall looks confused. Are you expecting someone? Actually, yes. Could you get that? He walks to the door. I watch from the living room as he opens it to find a man in a suit holding a manila envelope. Dr. Marshall Hawthorne? Yes? You've been served. The man hands him the envelope and walks back to his car. Marshall stands in the doorway, staring at the envelope like it might explode. Then he slowly closes the door and turns to me. Vera? What is this? Open it and find out, I say calmly. His hands shake as he opens it. I watch his face as he reads. Confusion, shock, fear. Petition for divorce? His voice cracks. Vera, what? I don't understand. Really? I stand, crossing my arms. Let me help you understand, Marshall. Tuesday, November 12th. Nashville International Airport. You, with flowers and a poster board, picking up your girlfriend Lila. The color drains from his face. I can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. Just like you can explain the secret apartment in the Gulch, the $15,000 on hotels and dinners, the Tiffany jewelry on our credit card. Should I keep going? How did you... He stops. You saw us. At the airport. I saw you. I photographed you. I documented everything. Every text message where you told Rick you were planning to leave me. Every hotel receipt. Every romantic dinner. I have it all, Marshall. Every single piece of evidence. He sinks onto the couch, still holding the papers. Vera, please, let me explain. It's exactly what I think. 2-year affair. Secret apartment. You were going to wait until after holidays to ask for divorce because you didn't want to ruin Christmas. Did I miss anything? His silence is answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I continue. You're going to read those papers with your attorney. You're going to see the evidence, and trust me, it's comprehensive. You're going to realize fighting me means all this becomes public record. Your affair, your spending, all of it. Then you're going to agree to my terms. What terms? 60-40 split in my favor. Full reimbursement for every penny you spent on Lila. You don't contest anything. Don't drag this out. Don't try to paint yourself as victim. You sign, we divide assets, we move on. 60-40? Vera? That's not fair. Fair? I actually laugh. Was it fair when you spent our money on hotel rooms? Used our credit card to buy her jewelry? Lied to me for 2 years? He has no answer. Tennessee is a fault-based divorce state, I continue. Adultery is grounds. Dissipation of marital assets affects property division. Judges don't like when spouses use joint funds to finance affairs. So yes, Marshall, 60-40 is generous. If we go to trial, I'll ask for 70-30, and I'll probably get it. His hands still shake as he flips through pages. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. And the worst part? You were planning to keep hurting me. Let me plan Thanksgiving, host your family, coordinate Christmas, smile through it all while knowing you were leaving. Use me for one more holiday season, then discard me in January. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I read your texts with Rick. After the holidays. Make it nice for her one last time. Like I'm some charity case you need to humor. He looks up, tears in his eyes. I do love you, Vera. I'm not in love with you anymore. Then you should have divorced me 2 years ago, like an adult. Instead, you lied and cheated and spent our money while I kept our life running, while I planned your events and managed your calendar and made sure you looked good. I made you look successful, Marshall, and you thanked me by betraying me. I'm sorry, he whispers. I don't care, and I mean it. I don't care if you're sorry. I care that you face consequences, and you will. He sits there crying. Actual tears while holding papers that will end our 14-year marriage. I feel nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy. Just cold, clear certainty that I'm doing the right thing. You need to leave, I tell him. Tonight. Pack a bag and go to your apartment. I'm sure Lila will be happy to console you. Vera, please. No, you don't get to please me. You had 2 years, to be honest. You chose to lie. So now you leave. Let your attorney handle everything. And pray I don't change my mind about keeping this quiet. Marshall stands slowly, like he's aged 10 years. What about Christmas? My family. Your family can celebrate with you and Lila. Or you can tell them the truth about why your marriage ended. That's up to you. He walks toward the stairs, then stops. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. You deserved better. You're right. I did. Now go pack. 30 minutes later, Marshall comes downstairs with a suitcase. He pauses at the door like he wants to say something else. Don't, I tell him. Just go. He goes. The door closes, and I sit in the silence of my house. My house now, really. I wait for emotions to hit. The sadness, the grief, but they don't come. Instead, I feel lighter. My phone buzzes. Victoria Blackwell. Victoria. Process server confirmed delivery. How are you holding up? Me. Better than expected. He left. It's over. Victoria. The beginning of the end. His attorney will be in touch within 48 hours. Get ready for negotiation. Me. I'm ready. The next weeks are a blur of legal meetings. Marshall's attorney, a tired-looking man named Gerald, contacts Victoria on December 21st. They schedule a meeting for December 27th. I spend Christmas alone. Intentionally alone. I order Chinese takeout, watch rom-coms. Don't think about Marshall or Lila or the life I thought I had. The negotiation meeting is surprisingly painless. Marshall doesn't want to fight. His attorney lays out a counteroffer, 55-45 split, and he'll reimburse the $15,000 over 2 years instead of immediately. Victoria looks at me. I nod. Acceptable. But I want it in writing that he admits to the affair and dissipation of assets. No ambiguity? Gerald sighs. Marshall nods miserably. We hammer out details. I keep the house. I'll refinance to buy out his equity. We split retirement accounts according to percentage. Investment accounts get divided. I get the Mercedes, he keeps the Audi. By January 15th, we have a signed settlement. By February 3rd, the divorce is finalized. 14 years of marriage ended with a judge's signature. I walk out of the courthouse that cold February morning as Vera Hawthorne, though I'm already planning to legally change back to Vera Caldwell. Fresh start, clean slate. My phone buzzes with an unknown number. Unknown. I hope you're happy. You destroyed his life. Lila. Probably watching Marshall deal with fallout and deciding I'm the villain. I delete the message without responding. She's not worth my time. 6 months later, I'm in my renovated home office. I turned Marshall's old study into workspace for elegance events. When my phone rings. Vera Caldwell speaking. Ms. Caldwell, this is Jennifer Davis from Nashville Lifestyle Magazine. We're doing a feature on successful female entrepreneurs in Nashville. Your name came up repeatedly. Would you be interested in being interviewed? Absolutely. The interview happens 2 weeks later. Jennifer asks about my business, growth strategy, memorable events. She asks delicately about my recent divorce. It was a learning experience, I tell her honestly. I learned I'm stronger than I thought, that I can handle anything life throws at me, and that sometimes the worst thing that happens turns out to be exactly what you needed. The article runs in September. The headline, Vera Caldwell, Building an Empire, One Event at a Time. There's a photo of me in my office, confident and successful. No mention of being anyone's wife or ex-wife. Just me, my business, my achievements. The article brings 3 new high-profile clients. My calendar fills for 18 months. Elegance Events becomes the most sought-after planning company in Nashville. I hire 2 additional planners to keep up. I run into Marshall once, at a charity event I'm coordinating in October. He's there with Lila, who looks significantly less glamorous than at the airport. Turns out, being with Marshall in reality is different from being the exciting secret girlfriend. Marshall sees me, and his face goes pale. I smile, wave politely, turn back to my conversation with a potential client. I don't have time for my past. I'm too busy building my future. It's been a year since I discovered Marshall's affair at the airport. A year since my world fell apart and I realized I had to rebuild it. And here's what I've learned. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the best transformation. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted makes room for what you actually need. I'm not grateful for what Marshall did. I'm not going to pretend his affair was some blessing in disguise. He betrayed me, lied to me, wasted 2 years of my life. But I am grateful for who I became in the aftermath. The woman who documented everything. The woman who planned her revenge with the same precision she brings to weddings and galas. The woman who stood her ground and demanded what she deserved. That woman is someone I'm proud to be. My life now looks different than I imagined a year ago. I live alone in a beautiful house that's entirely mine. I run a thriving business I built from nothing. I have friends, hobbies, freedom. I'm dating, casually, discovering what I actually want in a partner now that I'm not settling. Last week, I planned a divorce party for a client, a celebration of her freedom after leaving a 20-year marriage. Champagne tower, live band, all her friends celebrating her courage to start over. She pulled me aside. You really understand this, don't you? The relief of getting out? I do, because I've been there. Any advice? I thought about everything I learned, about Marshall and Lila and divorce papers, and the moment I decided I wasn't going to be a victim. Yes. Don't wait for permission to demand what you deserve. Don't shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable. And never underestimate your own strength. You're more capable than you think. She hugged me, tears in her eyes. Thank you. Because that's what I do now. I celebrate new beginnings, fresh starts, the courage it takes to walk away and build something better. Marshall thought he was trading up when he chose Lila. He thought he was leaving behind a boring wife for an exciting new relationship. What he actually did was lose the woman who made his life work, who managed his career, planned his events, handled his family, and asked for almost nothing in return. And he'll figure that out eventually. Maybe he already has. But that's not my problem anymore. I have galas to plan, businesses to run, and a life to live. A life that's entirely mine, built exactly how I want it. That airport moment, the moment I saw my husband embrace another woman and my world shattered, turned out to be the moment everything actually began. Not the end of my story, just the end of the chapter where I let someone else write my narrative. Now I'm the author. And this story, it has a very happy ending.